Sure, it's interesting. We have kind of a young but experienced team, and to explain it best, we have, I don't know what the numbers would say, but the amount of guys that have started one game, at least a game in their college career. I think our three juniors have started, probably on the average, almost 30, 35, 40 games between each of them, almost 100 starts between those three guys. And then our sophomores, we had at least 4 of them start at least one game last year. So we do have a little bit of experience there. I think our juniors, it kind of took them a little bit of while to realize that, hey, they were the only guys, that there were no seniors. And I think once they kind of grasped that this was their team and this was their chance, that they've really done a good job with leadership and kind of putting their own stamp on the team. They are really kind of an interesting mix where Brian really almost has a better perimeter game in some ways, in that he can catch and shoot, he can face and shoot, where IKENNA is so much more off the dribble and can really score around the basket. But they are kind of unique where IKENNA can rebound the ball and go the length of the floor himself. He was always kind of a guard growing up, almost a point guard. He's a point guard in high school, so he has those kind of skills. So kind of to define his position for us is difficult, because he played the 1 for us as a freshman, almost played the 4 and sometimes 5 last year, so he's probably somewhere in between there. Where Brian was a straight low post guy, back to the basket guy his whole career, and now he's been able to kind of face the basket, can shoot a little bit, can go off the dribble a little bit, so that they do have kind of diverse ways of getting to where their numbers end up, but end up being pretty good complements for each other. Challenge for us is can they continue to kind of improve their games, because they became somewhat marked men last year. They both were good as freshmen, but then became go-to guys last year. So I think when people put scouting reports together, that's the guys that they'll be looking at. So we're hoping they've diversified their games a little bit. We're hoping we have a little bit more help around for them. We hope our post guys can, last year we had to play Brian at 5 the whole time, IKENNA at 4 the whole time, and we're hoping maybe we can play Brian at 4 a little bit, play IKENNA at 3 a little bit, that maybe our younger post guys can help a little bit in that area. Both of them were in the top, I think, 6 or 7 in our league in rebounding, and we were still, negative in our rebound margin. So the key is, can we get those guys a little bit of help on the glass, and hopefully for them to, continue to improve. But it will be challenging years for them, in terms that they'll be the focus of more people's attention. So I think it's a challenge for them, but it's a challenge for our other guys, that if we can have some more consistency from our other guys. That's the whole key for us, is can those guys make shots? Because last year, we were near the bottom in three-point percentage. There were three-pointers made too, and it wasn't just because we didn't make a ton, we didn't shoot a ton, because IKENNA was going to the rim and Brian was scoring with his back to the basket. So we have to have some guys that are going to step up and make some shots. I think Brian will actually step up and make more perimeter shots if we're able to get John Bray, Brian Comey, big freshman we have, to kind of relieve him of some of that burden in the low post. But there's no question, Cooper Halesman, Jonathan Almador, Julian has made a lot of big shots over in conference games last year. He was over 40-something%. He shot almost 51 or 52 as a freshman from behind the arc. So that's the whole key, to try and take some pressure off those guys. Consistently make shots will be huge for them, because they're going to draw a lot of attention. And people don't let IKENNA drive to, they're not going to let him get all the way to the basket. So the key is for him to have confidence, those guys to have confidence in pitching out to guys, but those other guys be able to hit to make shots for us. They have certainly made leaps and bounds physically, that they've come back in much better shape. Each of them has certain areas, either strength or either agility or just straight physical condition, and they all have improved in those areas. So I think their maturity, usually we see the biggest growth from guys from their freshman or sophomore year, as opposed to any other year, because they kind of figure things out. College is an adjustment in terms of you're eating in a new place, you're living in a new place, you're making new friends, academic adjustments. So I think they all have handled that, had a few ups and downs with those, but have handled those. So I think just their growth and maturity will be a big help for them. And they have made big strides in terms of, they kind of figured out last year, here's where I need to be to play college basketball physically. And I think they've done it, and they're going to have to consistently do it. That was the whole challenge for us last year, is sometimes they were good on one night, and sometimes other guys were good on one night, and they weren't as good. Sometimes they weren't as consistent from play to play, from half to half. So our hope is that we can settle into a rotation of guys, with those guys being a little bit more consistent. But they're really a unique group. They're very close knit. We have 6 or 7 of them in that sophomore class. They hang out together. They live together. They work out together. So they're a pretty unique group. I've seen a lot of maturity out of them. Well, we hope 1 or 2 of them will play a little bit. We also hope that we're in a position that we don't have to rely on them to play. Our first year here, those freshmen, Brian, Julian, and IKENNA all had to play. They were good, and they were good enough to play, but they had to play just out of necessity. And I think if they tell you the truth and they go back and look at it, they enjoyed playing, but there's some ups and downs in that too. They physically get beat down, they mentally get beat down, where they had to be the guy, relied on to win and lose games. They're going against guys that are 3 years older than them and just have things figured out. So we hope we're in a position that if we have a freshman that can help us, that's great, but we don't have to say, here's 3 freshmen that we have to have start for us or that have to win the games for us. So I think they all have some unique qualities. They all have some different areas that they need to grow in, but I think we anticipate at least 1 or 2 of them we'll see some time for us at some point during the year. Obviously we hope we've made a little bit of growth here. This is year number 3 for us, so we think we're on the right track. We haven't put kind of a wins and losses on. We never try and do that. If we win X amount of games and it's a success or a failure. But we hope that we're getting closer to the top teams in our league. And saying that's a pretty grand statement because of where our league has been in the past, at least last year, where we had almost 5 teams that got ranked at some point in our league. We had 3 teams in the national tournament, 2 in the Sweet 16. So we think we're getting close to being competitive with those teams. That hopefully we feel like each night that we have a chance. We always feel like we have a chance, but that we can really play with those top teams. Now hopefully that will kind of reflect in what our win-loss record is. But more so for us, it's a thing of, can we be more consistently competitive every night? Can we show some kind of maturity and be competitive, every play, every half, every game, instead of avoiding some of these kind of ups and downs that come when you have some youth. But we're really excited. Our schedule is challenging again for us. But I think our younger guys have really grown up, and I think our 3 juniors have all 4 red juniors have taken a real leadership role for us.